You have made it to Stew and The Nunn, an online radio show that looks to inform, educate, and hopefully make you laugh. Stew and The Nunn is a show focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Stew and The Nunn. I am here solo tonight. Well, no Nunn tonight, just myself, except for our guest. So I was working tech, doing all that stuff, and my one audio thing did not work the way I wanted it to. So I jumped to the backup, but it's okay. We recovered, and we're here. I want to welcome you all to this October 15th show. Sounds weird saying October, but hope you got your taxes in, because today was the last tax day you had. I know it seems weird, but it is 2020. If you remember, they gave everyone an extension to like July, and then you got another one to October. Today is it. So just a kind, friendly PSA there. But anyways, welcome to the show. Very excited to have you on. Very excited for our sponsors: Commodity Outdoor Development Group, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Veteran Outdoors, our secondary honorary sponsors, Gear for Grunts. I'm sporting my Gear for Grunt shirt on tonight. BooHammer.com, got my hat on. And I want to thank all them and everyone that supports us and helps us out. Yes, Toby is a pretty significant wife's birthday event tonight, so he has to bail out, and that's totally acceptable. We have to miss a show once in a while. I think that is by all means okay. So I want to jump right into it. We have a lot of things going on. I hope you're all watching. I know there's some people having town halls right now. A couple guys, I don't know right now. So I hope we haven't lost too many people to there. And it looks like from our numbers, it's not too bad. But I want to welcome onto the show Mr. Doug Taurel. And I had to ask him beforehand. I was like, hey, is it Douglas? Is it Doug? Because, you don't want to offend anybody, especially your guests. So I want to welcome Doug on the show. Hey there, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Thank you for giving us some of your nights, some of your Thursday evening away from family and everything else, and the TV, and I know you're not able to catch up on the news right now. There's not much going on though, but you're okay.
No, yeah, that's pretty boring.
Yeah, I think there's like cats that are stuck in trees or something. There's not really a lot happening, but yeah. So no, anyways, again, welcome to the show. Welcome to Stew and The Nunn. Sorry, Nunn's not here. He will just have to catch it. He is his loss. So, but probably would be his loss if he made the show. And he may be. It's probably for his health. It's probably better he's not here. So, yeah, welcome. Hey, we got a lot to get into. There's a lot going on, and we're going to dig into a lot of your stuff. You're an accomplished actor. You have a pretty long IMDb resume list. You have movies, TV shows, all kind of stuff. And I want to and obviously, we're going to cap and talk about both The American Soldier and Landing Home, two projects that you have started and put together. And I'm sure we haven't talked about it. It wasn't out of, hey, I think there's a lot of money to be made here. There was a passion there.
And passion, yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, probably just the opposite of making money. And we want to get into that. But you mind giving our listeners and viewers just a little bit of a background of kind of where you came from and some of your upbringing. And I think it'll kind of feed and understand who you are and why you do what you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Texas originally. I'm from Houston. So though there's nothing going on in the news, my Astros are playing, so that's keeping me busy. But my parents are immigrants. My father was an Argentinian Jew. My mother is a Colombian Catholic. My father passed away about 3 years ago, and my father was um, very patriotic. He was a big fan of the country. He was a classic Jew from that generation who grew up during World War II, from World War II era, and he was very very grateful for what America did to save the Jews from Nazi Germany. Growing up as a kid, you weren't even allowed to buy anything German as a kid in my house. So that's kind of where I'm from. I grew up in Houston, and then I went to college at Ole Miss, and then I spent a couple of years there, and I came back to Houston, and then I met my wife in Houston, and then we both decided to. I was ready to get out of Houston, ready to come try something different, take my career to a different level, and she wanted to leave as well, and so we decided to come to New York, and I've been here for 20 years. I've got two kids, Austin and Stella. Austin's about 11, Stella's about 7, and we've been here grinding it out, man, in Manhattan for 20 years. And we came here doing, it was a little bit surreal. We came here right before 9/11, and I was coming out of the North Towers when 9/11 happened. So it was pretty scary as a young actor coming out of the North Towers, and and seeing what's happening with New York and dealing with 9/11, wondering if maybe coming to New York wasn't the smartest move.
Should have stayed in Tejas.
Yeah, I did think about, maybe we should go back. I don't think this was a nice experiment, but this doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah.
But, I grinded it out, and I've been very happy here, and it's been good. It's been, COVID right now has been probably, I would say, is more challenging than 9/11 was. 9/11 was a pretty seismic shift for the whole country and for the whole world, and definitely for the entertainment business. But COVID has been pretty. I think COVID has been worse, to be honest.
I would think so. The long lasting effect. I was talking today. I was on air with a friend who has a show on regular radio, and we were talking about how our local theater. We have a traveling Broadway theater here. Where the traveling shows come through, and we have season tickets.
Where are you at exactly?
Oh, I'm actually out of Buffalo. So I'm on the
Buffalo, New York.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm on the other side. Toby's out of Austin, Georgetown, actually. So we always call mine's the northern studio. He's the southern studio. So I did not realize you were in the city. I mean, you're an East Coast actor versus a West Coast. So
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah. So the theater shut down. We just got notice yesterday that don't worry about it, there's no shows until March of 2021. I mean, and it's been pretty impactful to the theater communities here, and I'm sure obviously in Broadway and everywhere. And we were just in New York City on the end of the year, December 30th, 31st last year, seeing several shows back to back. It's kind of a thing. My son's big into musicals and acting and singing, and we always try to head over to the city and catch a show every once in a while. We caught Tootsie in Oklahoma. Went there for Oklahoma, but fell in love with Tootsie and said, "Oh, this was the greatest thing I've ever seen." So yeah, we're big fans of the community for sure.
Yeah, Broadway's great, man.
Yeah,
It's really.
and I know it's going to be super impactful there. But I mean, I want to dial it back just a sec to the 9/11 reference. I mean, yeah, you obviously came to New York from Texas and up here, and when you coming out of the North Tower, were you just coming up out of the subway and just came up out of that stop, or
Yeah,
were you actually in the towers?
yeah. So for people who don't know, so I live in Hoboken, New Jersey, which
Oh
is
yeah,
considered. So there's 5 boroughs in New York. Hoboken is so close to New York, they call it the 6th borough. In fact, every shot that you see of Manhattan when it's flat is coming from Hoboken.
yep.
Hoboken is literally required. If you Google it, you'll see it's the Hudson River is the only thing that separates us.
Sully
And
landed between Hoboken and Manhattan. I mean, that's where he put the plane down at, right?
basically, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's right, Sully. That's exactly it. So it's really close.
yeah,
So a lot of people who work in the city live in Hoboken. So that's why it's called the 6th borough, because you basically take the path underneath, and you can be from my house to Times Square. You can be there in 30 minutes
right.
for path of door to door. So what we have is a path train, and everyone you take the train underneath, and you go to, and at that time all the subways and all the trains they landed underneath the Twin Towers.
Yeah,
That's why it was a big deal when they came down. It was a major artery that was shut down in all of Manhattan.
right.
Not only did you have the subways and the trains coming in from New Jersey, but you also had ferries coming into there. There was a massive artery. Basically, you could think of it as a heart and all these veins coming into it, and then from there pumping back out.
It was probably bigger than a bridge. If they would have lost a bridge or one of the other tunnels, probably wouldn't have been as big because of the ferries and the path trains. We're probably
Yeah.
moving more people, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah. I used to always tell people it was really amazing because you would come down in there, and it's just we just had the 9/11 anniversary, and I still to this day remember they had these huge stairs on the bottom. I mean, they were massive stairs because you have to understand. Have you ever been to the 9/11 museum?
Yes, I have. Was just there actually several times, but there just a few months ago.
So if you think about going, when you go all, if you remember the section when you go all the way down and they have a section left with the bolts
Yep.
or the old right there. Well, you used to be able to, from the bottom of that to the very top was actually an escalator. So from the very top, from where you come in to the very bottom. So when when you go through the security and all that, when you come in from the very bottom, that wasn't all escalators. So it was this massive escalator. So, and it was filled with people coming in from all over the place. And I was always amazed because no one ever bumped into each other because, everyone's going to work. So you land around between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning and everyone is on a path to go somewhere, right? You're going to work. So no one is bumping, no one's mingling. And it was just to see humanity of people. So it was always really amazing. I regret never taking a picture of it because it just like we look like ants coming out and moving around.
No, it's a good. That's true. You say that. I said the same thing. I was at the towers a few times before they went down, and I always regretted not taking my family there to see it. The first time I took them to New York City was after the tower, about 4 or 5 months after the towers were down. Right when a Marriott right next door, the one that got some damage, the first opened, and we stayed there just looking in the hole.
Yeah.
I was in the New York National Guard at the time, so I was we were in New York City, we were at airports, we were doing all that stuff, and we're there for a long time. I'm sure you remember seeing the soldiers every place. In fact, they're still there in some of the train depots. But yeah, it was the same thing, and then seeing that, and it was just you never thought, right, that one day this is all going to be gone. It wasn't even conceivable.
No.
That wow, that was a moment in time, and they'll never be there. And hindsight 2020, it's just kind of like if I woulda shoulda kind of thing. But yeah, I remember that the subway, I mean the escalators, the stairs, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, now when you go down to that museum, like you say, the retaining bolts from the wall.
Yeah, so all the way to the bottom and all the way to the top where you come in from the security, that was all an escalator. And so I was just coming out of the North Tower. I used to personal train, and there was a gym about where I trained at on Whitehall Street. Was about 10 blocks down, and I walked out. Trying to remember the times, but I walked out. I think the first plane hit at 8:30, so I think I walked out at 8 o'clock or 8:10 in the morning. I got to the gym like at 8:35, and the first plane hit right when I got to the gym, and I remember thinking because no one really. If you remember, no one really knew what the first plane was.
Right.
The way it impacted, it wasn't very loud and it wasn't very forceful. Everyone thought it was a Cessna. People thought it was a hot air balloon. People thought it was a crazy guy who didn't know where he was flying. And you just went on with your day. I remember feeling it and watching the news. We had TVs all over the gym. And then it was the second one at 9:30 or 9:15, if I remember correctly, 9:15 or 9:30. And the second one hit. That's when
everybody knew. Yeah, the first one nobody was looking up, right? I was like, boom, what was that? And you're right. Yeah. Pretty much, I would imagine a few people in buildings may have happened to see it, but for the most part, everyone was like, I remember the thought was, how could someone hit that building? I mean, they're the biggest things in New York City. How could they not have went around, right? How could someone accidentally run into it? It was when that second one hit and the light switch, I think, went off for the world, right? They went,
no, it was huge, and went off. And then I remember being stuck there and then watching the towers come down and then, being evacuated. Everyone knows the story. So that was.
Hey, but you stayed in New York City.
Yeah, we stayed. We stayed. We grinded it out.
Those days, those weeks, the weeks and a few months after that. I mean, that was a.
Well, nothing was going on. You couldn't fly anywhere really. Right. I mean, all the flights were canceled. Flights didn't really kick back up till almost 3-4 months later.
But New York came together. Remember the caring, the outrage. I mean, it's totally
changed.
It
was. Compared to today, it was a very different environment, man. Yes. It was I remember being on the West Side Highway, and I remember so clearly to this day. I can still see it. In fact, this year I taught my son 9/11. For years, I didn't tell him what it was. We'd always talk about 9/11. He saw the Freedom Tower. So I live in a 5 condo unit, and outside the elevator, we have a picture of it with the Twin Towers. And it's there to remind us that just today could be your last day you see your family.
Yeah.
That you're not promised to come back home.
Yeah.
So me and my wife put that picture there after 9/11 to remind us that when we leave for whatever, we may not come back home to cherish the day. We always say goodbye to each other. So my son would always ask about that picture. And so this year, for the first time, we saw some documentaries, and I took him to I took him to the 9/11 museum, and I explained to him where I was at and everything. So it was really not, it was really special. But we watched a documentary. It's a well-known documentary. It's on Amazon or Netflix, but it was the one done with the French students they were doing a documentary for a fire station, and they were just following them around, and then they happened to be there when 9/11 happened. And it's really well, I forgot what it's called, but it's really well done. So we watched that, and I remember they had a clip of all the fire trucks going back and forth on the West Side Highway, and everyone holding American flag signs and saying, "Yeah, yeah, USA #1," and and they talk about everyone buying flags, and I remember thinking that was, it's like a 180 from where we're at today in the country.
Right, right. I mean, it's a common saying, right? People are like, I kind of wish it was like 2001. I mean, when America really came together and they didn't care. But yeah, definitely. So interesting. Okay, we definitely got in a topic. That's kind of what our show's like. Something I wasn't even sure we're getting into, but it's interesting to hear that. So, so kind of, I want to tailor back a little bit more. So you came up. You said your parents are immigrants. You came to this country. You were in Houston. And kind of what you saw. Where did you get the acting bug? Where was it you were like, hey, I may give this acting thing a try? This boy from Texas.
Well, it's a very cliche story. I had a crush on a girl in high school, and then we broke up in college. And I didn't know what I was going to do with myself in college. Just like every kid who played high school football, I thought I was going to be a pro athlete, and I was not. And so I wanted to impress her somehow, and I some kid in college was talking about auditioning, and I went and auditioned for a children's play at school, and I got cast, and that's where the bug bit me basically. I was really trying to impress her, and so I got cast, and the girl said I was an alligator. That was my audition. To this day, I never forget.
That was your role.
That was my role. She goes, "Can you be an alligator?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I got on the floor, made stupid noises. I was always a goofball in high school. I was never shy. So she cast me in a play, and then she cast me again in another play, and then she said, "You're pretty good. If you major in theater, I can give you a scholarship." So that was like, well, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And
Free
and
college.
so, yeah, so I that's what I did. I went to a junior college first, and that was for 2 years. And after 2 years, it's funny that I do the American Soldier, because my life in many ways has been pointing towards this direction in a weird way. So, I didn't. I was a good student. I wasn't a great student. I had good grades in junior college. I didn't do. I partied before my SATs in high school, so I had horrific SAT scores. So I wasn't able to go to this big school I wanted to. But at the end of my 2-year college career or whatever, um, we had these theater auditions, and I was getting some award in some of the plays that we were getting. We would do these theater competitions around Texas, and I was getting awards. I was getting like excellence in actor, and I felt really natural what I was doing. So this guy named Mr. Vaughn, who was a teacher, he always said, you should audition for the major colleges, because they would pick you up. And I was like, no, I think this was a like I felt like a one trick pony. I felt like, I did it for 2 years. I got some money, I got my associate degree. I didn't think anything of it. He goes, no, you need to audition. So we went to they were having these big theater degrees, these big theater auditions for major universities, University of Texas, Ole Miss, big schools. And he said, did you prepare a monologue? And I said, nah, Mr. Vaughn, I didn't prepare. I'm basically just here to party and just support my friends who are going to audition. Because no, you're going to audition. And he gave me a monologue called "From Tally and Son," and it's about a dead Vietnam a soldier who's dead, and it's very similar to the play you were just telling me about, of the couple who's traveling, and he comes back to his family. He's dead, and he notices how he basically is watching his family move on from him, and he's some people are mourning him, and some people are like his sisters forgot him. They've completely, like, they moved on. And so it's a play about how life moves on after death. And it's this, he's a Vietnam soldier. And so he gave me that monologue, and I remember I did that monologue, and it went really well for me. I got a lot of offers, and one of the offers was Ole Miss. And I found, when I look back at my career as an actor, and now that I'm doing The American Soldier, I find it really interesting that that was
Kind of
that
come full
monologue,
circle almost.
full circle, is the
Yeah.
monologue that kind of opened the door into this soldier world that I've been telling these stories.
Right. Right.
So
Now you never served, right? You never
I
served.
never served.
Did
No.
you ever consider it? Was it something you went
No,
down
well,
that path?
yeah, I did kind of. So I'm blind in my left eye. So when I was in high school, when you play high school football, you have, you're on like this, you're on this A list for recruiters to call you, right? You play Texas high school football, they're going to call all the guys on the who are about to graduate. And so when an Army recruiter called me, I never forget. I had a waterbed, and I was lying in my
Oh,
waterbed, and my mom
it
said,
was the 80s,
it
right?
was the 80s, man. No, yeah, it was no 91.
Oh,
It was
90s.
91, and she said, "There's an Army recruiter on the phone for you." And I said, "Okay." And I think my mom was a little bit nervous passing me on, but she was like, "Let's see if this is something that'll guide him," because I was pretty much into partying, really. That's what I was into. And so I spoke to him, and I said, "You know what? Why just, I just got a full, got to be honest. I'm blind in my left eye." And he basically said, "Well, I think you'll have a good life, son, but I don't think the military is for you." And he basically kind of dismissed me. And then the Marine called me, and then I told him the same thing, and he said basically the same response. "Well, I think you're going to have a great life, Doug, but I don't think the military is for you." And then the Coast Guard called me, and even the Navy called me, and same thing. So I think when the Coast Guard called, I even told them, like, "Hey, before you even start the spiel, let me just tell you, I'm blind in my left eye." And once I knew, once they said, they all dismissed me and passed on me, I I thought that I wouldn't have nothing to do with the military. I was like, okay, that was it. That was my one connection to the military, is those phone calls, and that's it for me. I'll never have anything to do with the military. So again, I find it really funny and ironic, and that now I know so much about the military, and I've become very good friends with a lot of vets and families of vets, and I'm about as versed as, I mean, I'm as versed as you can be without serving, and
Yeah.
so it's really interesting. So that was about as close as I got to actually serving, or
Yeah.
trying to serve.
You got a good military haircut. Wasn't sure, so
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, that was God given.
that's right. Mine too. The awesome. Well, okay. So obviously, so you went on Ole Miss, go Rebels, and had a big long career, and did a lot of stuff. Like I say, you've got a long history in Blue Bloods, The American, Mr. Robot, all kind of shows and movies. At one point, did you get to the point? I guess what was the inspiration besides what you talked about with the monologue you did? But where did you go? Hey, I want to start putting this thing American Soldier together, and then kind of go into a little bit what the American Soldier is about. I want to make sure our audience hears that.
Well, The American Soldier is a one-man show, and I've been doing it, probably professionally touring around the country since 2000, and almost the end of 14, but really the beginning of 15. It's a one-man show. It's based off of letters from the American Revolution all the way through the recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's based on letters and actual stories from vets and their families. Um, I got, after, because of 9/11, going backwards, I was really moved by, just like everybody, I was infused with a level of patriotism. And I have always been very patriotic. My father was very patriotic, as a kid. I remember him always watching World at War. I don't know if anybody knows that it was an old documentary. It was basically a Hitler show. I mean, it was all about, Second World War, and he would watch that. And so I was always infused with a level of patriotism. I always loved America. It was instilled from my parents, but after 9/11, obviously those seeds really flourished after 9/11. They really came out. I started to feel them. You don't really know you're patriotic until you start expressing your patriotism. And I never really expressed it in high school or anything, I mean, but after 9/11, I was really expressing my patriotism. I was really proud to be an American, and I probably would have served if I could have, if I thought I could have. I would even think about, I wonder if I just went to Iraq, what would happen, but I never did. So I decided to, you know, I wanted, I wanted to do something with my skills. I was already acting kind of professionally. So I wanted to tell stories and give people a sincere appreciation for what vets were going through. Because at that time, after about a year after 9/11 or 2 years, we were starting to get heavily into the Middle East, and some stories about guys coming back who were struggling. And as those stories started piling up, I started reading more stories about vets who couldn't pay their bills, who were having PTSD was just really starting to be noticed. The suicide rates haven't really been talked about yet, but they were starting. And there was a couple of stories that really they moved me, and I just thought, and the country was working so hard to move past 9/11, and everything. It felt like no one was really paying attention to the servicemen. And so I started. I said, I want to create a soldier play, and I want to remind everybody why Air America is so great, because I think we should realize that we've got people in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they're really struggling when they're coming back. So originally, I started really studying the revolution, and my idea was to tell the American Revolution story, so people can remember how we started, and let that, you know,
It was
be a catalyst or an inspiration for us to be, patriotic. But the more I dug into the revolution, I started digging into other wars, and I started going down rabbit holes, and I just fell, I really fell in love with the stories that I was finding. I would literally go to the New York Public Library and pull books out full of letters. You can, when you want to write a play about war, you can write it. I mean, you can go in many different directions. You can just stay on the revolution. You can write 10 plays. So, um, I just started collecting letters, and I started collecting stories, and it just came to a point where I had a bunch of stuff, and I eventually was able to put it all together, and create the play. And the goal was really I really wanted people to have a sincere appreciation for what veterans were going through. That was really the goal. I wanted people to understand, like, when you see a serviceman, you should understand what sacrifice really means, and what thank you for your service really is.
It's interesting that it planted that seed, and you recognize that, right? When someone thinks of Hollywood and thinks of actors, they think of moving project to project, big money, all the green rooms and all the fame and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's apparent you are a student of history. You're doing a lot of you're reading, you're thinking about stuff. It's not just what's my next project, what's my next script to review, that kind of stuff. We were talking a little bit before the show started. I mean, it seems you talked about starting with the Revolutionary War, which I thought was interesting because not obviously the current wars, global war and terror, have been kind of hot button and can be controversial, so not everyone can relate. But it's like, how could they not relate to a war that happened so long ago? They really don't have a connection to, but everyone knows about.
Yeah.
What is it sounds like, and you have a stack of books behind you, that you still are a big student of history and you're always reading. Is that really where your passion is? Have you?
Yeah, I love history. That was the one. I think that's where my acting skill came from, is through my love of history. Because um, in high school, I was always really good at history. I used to enjoy the class a lot. And when I would get characters, to this day, I would love, finding out who's he from. Okay, where's he from? What part of the country he's from? Okay, what's going on in the country? Let me look at videos. Let me look at pictures. And so I would really enjoy building the history of what that era was, and where he came from, and what his environment contributed to the person who he was. And so, and I loved war history. I mean, I had specifically loved American war history. I was really passionate about it, and I was really passionate about the Revolution. I was really passionate about the Civil War, and World War I, World War II. And so it was an easy transition. Like I said, I would go to the New York Public Library, and I would read these stories, and I would read these books, and I couldn't put them down. And then they would lead into other stories. So I would go into the Revolution and say, well, let me, and then someone would say, you should check this book out. And then I would read, letters from World War I. And then I said, well, I wonder if there's letters from World War II. And sure enough, there's letters from World War II. And then I wonder about Vietnam. And, Vietnam was it was like a tsunami of information, and
We
so.
started getting into the media age, right? And where things were.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would drill down, where I would even look at microfiche. I would go down to different, guys who had passed away, and I would look at microfiche, and I would try to find out. Can you see? I mean, no one does this anymore, and a lot of the information now is online. But back then, you can literally, you would get rolls of microfiche, and you'd
Yeah.
stick in the New York Public Library, and I would read the newspaper articles from that time presently, and try to get an idea where the country was at. And it was really fascinating. And I learned a lot. There are a lot of, some common themes that I learned from all the wars. Some are funny, some are not so funny, but not taking care of our vets it's not a new thing.
Right.
We've been doing that since the revolution. When Joseph Plum and Ebenezer Fox were promised a certain amount of money to go fight for the revolution, when they got back, they got paid jack shit.
Right. Yeah.
They were promised. The country was broke. They didn't have any money. A lot of them went to fight other wars just to make ends meet. They started fighting in the Caribbean. And so, yeah, but that stuff really made it really interesting for me. I had some struggles creating the play.
I would imagine. It's a one-man play, right? It's
one-man show, yeah.
It's one-man show. It just starts out. You play multiple. You play all the different roles, and
Yeah.
you leave stage, come back on stage, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I play 14 characters.
Wow.
I play men, women, and children, and I only play infantrymen, and I play a wife and a child and a grandmother and a grandfather. And the whole play has an arc. There's only one character that comes out. One character comes out 3 times. It kind of like the way I created it, but it's kind of like a homage of different stories. But it's what it really is to me is it gives people a perspective of what the experiences of everything around war is really about, right? What is it to go to war? What is it to come back from war? What is it for the child to lose his father from war? What is it for the wife to be alone? What is it for a soldier in combat? All the different things.
All the backstory, the stuff you don't see
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah, because when we think of war, we only think of the soldier, but there's so many aspects to that soldier's life and his family that are actually affected from that combat that he's involved in, or from that deployment that he's been sent off in. It's not just the soldier; it's the mother, the father, the parents, the wife, the husband, whatsoever. The children who are left behind,
Right.
and it's really to give people a true understanding of what sacrifice really means and what thank you for your service really sincerely means. And so I think that's why the play has been successful. There's comedy in the play, and there's an uplift, and I think the play resonates because from a lot of vets have told me, it resonates because it tells them they feel like the play is a voice and is cathartic for them.
Right.
No one talks about these stories. As being a vet, these are stories that are hard for you to express. You don't know how to express them. And so a lot of vets say, you're like our mouthpiece. You're able to express things for us that we can't express. And you're able also to share our experiences with other people who we want to share with, but we don't know how to express it to them.
I imagine it's got to be flattering and probably kind of surprising to someone when they find out like you don't have a military background, that kind of stuff, and you're able to take that, they're feeling the emotion, all the 360 degrees of what it's like, not just the soldier, but like you say, you play the children, the wife, and all that, and be able to, that good of an actor, you can represent all that, and I'm sure come across completely believable. Not like we see in the action movies where the common joke in our military is every time there's a movie like that, we just go ready to shoot it down, right? There's always some dynamo, it's Hollywood stuff, right? They have to do it. It's not realistic, and we just go, we just rip it apart. But so usually the military community is kind of skeptical anytime someone is trying to portray
and
them.
they are with me as well. I've performed for probably close to, I don't know, 15, 20,000, but audience and vets, and I performed for the American Legion National Headquarters. I've performed for Purple Hearts recipients. You name it. And when there's a lot of vets in a performance, I could always feel within the first monologue, I can feel, and I've talked about this before, but I can feel the resistance. Like you can feel it. Like you can literally feel it. Like, who's this guy? What the fuck does he know? Why is he telling our story? This guy didn't serve. But I have an ability to really open up, and I think by the end of the first monologue and beginning the second monologue, they're with me. They're on my journey.
Yeah, you've won them over just by your performance.
Well, I think a lot of it is because of how accurate the play is, and people say, how did you know that? Did you serve and stuff? But I'm using real material, and so I'm connecting to it as an actor performance. But I'm not making up, I'm not making up the stories. I'm really.
You're not glamming it up and that stuff.
No, they're your words,
Right.
you know, they're your experiences, they're your stories, they're your, you know, your challenges. They're how when I talk about, you know, lacing up combat boots, they're words that vets have said. So I think that's what's given the play credibility, you know, and over time, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
No, I got you. You're good.
Um, that happened by itself. Um, over over time also, you know, I've been performing it for, like I said, 6 years professionally, but I mean, I've had some, you know, when I first started performing the show, I started with 5 people in front of an audience. I didn't think the play would be very successful. I'll be honest with you. I mean, when I struggled so long to get it up because I had these pile of letters
Right.
that I didn't know what to do with. And I was just like, what do I do with all these fucking letters, man? Like, and it's just nothing but fucking, I mean, it's just a bunch of veteran letters. And when I would talk to people, and I'll be honest, you know, a lot of vets, I mean, even from the revolution, they write about a lot of boring shit. You know, they're within the
Combat's pretty boring.
it is. It is.
It's like
Yeah, like
moments of excitement. The rest of it's pretty boring.
that's it. It's just like those little moments. So you would, you know, I would highlight those little moments, but there's a lot of boring stuff. Like in the revolution, there would be a lot of guys talking about like shooting monkfish. You know, like I shot monkfish today. I go to, and a lot of them were illiterate, so the English was all broken up. You know, today I went monkfish. Tomorrow we go to Sally's. We eat monkfish. Tomorrow we march. You know, so you had, you know, you had piles of that stuff. You know, and then you got Joseph Plum's diary, and his stuff was just really, really beautiful. You know, and you would just kind of like, you know, you would look at it and you would just kind of, you'd be like, wow, that's really passionate. You know, that's really gorgeous, and you would keep that to the side. But then over time, you know, I would talk to directors and I would say, you know, I want to turn this into a play. And they're like, what? Like, what do you want to do with all this fucking shit, man? And I said, I don't know, man. That's what's your job. You know, tell me what to do with it. And they're like, I don't know what to do with it. So
you had to find the nuggets in there of the things and kind of piece it
yeah,
together.
it wasn't until I got a director, and a director basically said, listen, man, it was really my wife. I was so frustrated. Forgive me, Toby, right? No, Troy.
Troy, yeah.
You're Troy.
Yep.
So I was so frustrated, Troy, that I grabbed all the paperwork, all the letters, and I threw it in the trash can. I was like, oh, fuck this. This is stupid, man. You know, because 9/11 happened. It was like 2008, 2009, and I was just carrying this shit over, you know, and I was struggling, and no one knew what to do with it. My wife pulled it all out of the trash can, and she said, you're not throwing this away. And so I memorized one monologue, and I found one director who was referred to me, and I said, listen, let me pay you to perform a monologue, and I just want to let you know if I'm onto something. And I was a World War II monologue. It's the one I do about Iwo Jima. And he was like, wow, that's really cool. You know, where'd you get that from? And we went on talking about it. He goes, do you have any more? I go, yeah, I got plenty more. I got plenty more. He goes, well, let's see another one. And I did another one. And he's like, well, what do you want to do with this material? I said, I don't know. His name was Patrick Lillis, great director. He's well known for creating solo shows. And I said, I don't know. I like to turn this into a small play. You know, it's just been a project. It's been an itch that I've been wanting to do. I like to turn this into a play. And I like to kind of just, one, get it off my chest and say I did it, you know, and you know, say that I try to tell a veteran story because I really care about the subject. So we worked together. We created 20 minutes. At one point, it had Shakespeare. It was very guy heavy. It had a lot of revolutions, and you know, Shakespeare talked about PTSD and Henry IV. You know, the battle between Hotspur and Prince Hal. You know, Hotspur has PTSD. Kate is in, you know, people who don't know Henry V, it's in 2 parts. You know, and part 1 is the battle between him and Prince Hal. And part 2, the opening monologue, it's Hotspur. Kate's talking to Hotspur, and she's telling him, you know, why won't you sleep? You know, why won't you come back? You don't smile anymore. You don't even look at me anymore. All I see you do is angry at night. And it's basically Kate saying, you know, it's Shakespeare saying this guy's got PTSD.
Right, yeah.
This guy has battle scars. And so I did the play for like 4 people, you know, and we took some feedback, and some of them said, you know, I like this. This kind of sucks. This not good. And anyway, we worked together, and my director said, you know, let's, like, the play's out of balance. We've got a lot of guys, you know, it's a lot of revolutionary monologues. I don't know how much interested. Let's get rid of Shakespeare. I need you to do some more research. I need you to find me some women, some children.
Right.
You know, we got to break it up. I was like, oh, fuck's sake, man. I don't want to do any more research, dude. I've been researching for so long. So anyhow, we did it. We put it all together, and I went back into my research, and I found letters and notes. And, you know, also at that time, Troy, people knew that I was on this mission. So they were sending me podcasts, sending me letters, books, and like everyone knew that this was like a huge mission for me. So we created it, and then I had a 25 minutes of a play, a 30 minutes of a play. And then he said, well, now my director said, well, go find a festival to perform in. And I said, okay. And so I couldn't find any festival. All the festivals told me no. No one wanted to hear, you know, New York is very jaded. No one wanted to hear a war story, you know, no one wanted to hear a veteran story. And I couldn't even get into a festival. So I really thought, well, I guess that those 5 people that I did the play for, that was it. Well, I had applied to a festival. In fact, on my Instagram, that picture that it's on my feed, that's the very first picture if I performed it for the festival. It's the Bowery Poetry Club. And this lady said, listen, someone dropped out of the festival. We have it's called a mano. It's 20 minutes. You have to be off book. Someone dropped out. It's on Memorial night. Do you want to step in? And I said, yeah, I'll step in. And she said, great. Okay. So, you know,
It was on the night before Memorial Day or that night?
Yeah. Night before Memorial Day,
Wow.
Memorial weekend.
Wow.
And it was like, Memorial's always on Monday, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was a Sunday, and no, it was Memorial night, man. It was Memorial night. I remember thinking it was Monday, and she goes, "Look, I'm not going to have many people in the audience. It's the festival's not doing really good." And I said, "That's okay. I just want to do it." So I was the first. It was 25 minutes me and 25 minutes somebody else. And I think the second play was about a girl not getting along with her father, and she gained a lot of weight. So like it was these two
totally opposite
stories. And it was a rainy Monday night. I remember like in the afternoon it was raining and thinking, fuck man, I don't want to do this play, man. There's going to be no one in the audience. And you know, as an actor, when you don't want to go do a play, you know, no one else wants to go see a play. And so
it was almost kind of fitting because, you know, in the Army we say if it ain't raining, you ain't training, right? So
really,
yeah,
really,
the only time we ever go to the field, it's always raining. So I say if it ain't raining, you ain't training. So it kind of fits.
Yeah. So I went. I remember thinking, oh fuck, man, there's gonna be no one in this audience. And there wasn't. There was 8 people in the house. It was me, my director, the other girl, her director. I hired a photographer because I thought that was gonna be it. So I hired a photographer, and those pictures on my Instagram feed of the first 2, and some other strange soul who was there, 2 other souls that were there. I was like, thank God you were there. And I performed it, and nervous as shit. And I got a standing ovation. And it wasn't really the standing ovation that was really cool. It was that I felt the play had a voice. For the first time, I felt like the play was talking. Like I could feel the power of the play. And afterwards, it was very emotional with the audience. And that became the beginning of the Q&As. And a sister came up to me. She lost her brother in Afghanistan. And she was very emotional. And she said, listen, I hope you don't stop doing this because this is very important what you're doing. And I think you're on to something. So at that time, that was the first time. And my director's a pretty accomplished Off-Broadway director. And I've been paying him. And so that was the first time that my director thought, besides collecting the paycheck, maybe this guy's onto something, you know? And so he said, you know what? I'm interested in working with you in this play. So let's meet next week and let's talk about it and let's really flush it out. So we did that. He jumped on board and we took it from 25 minutes to 45 minutes. Now it was much fuller. It was much more, had more depth. And I decided to take it to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in Scotland, which is a big theater festival. It's like the Super Bowl of theater festivals. There's like 3,500 shows in Scotland, yeah, in Edinburgh. And there's like 3,500 shows there. And what happens is a lot of Broadway shows and a lot of West End shows from London, they go there to get their resume built, basically. They go there, they get reviews, and they come back straight from Scotland. We got 5 stars, 4 out of 5 stars, you know, and they try to remind everyone, you know, they're building the show's resume.
Right. They're trying to shop it out with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great way. It's kind of a great way to kind of stretch your legs out and work out the kinks of the play. So I did it in Scotland. It's called The American Soldier. I was an American. My wife is Scottish, and I know Edinburgh really well. And I was a little nervous doing the play. But again, the play started speaking, and what I didn't really notice is the amount of vets and families of vets in Scotland, because they had also been serving in Iraq and
Oh
Afghanistan,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
who have been struggling with PTSD and suicide. And after the play, so many mothers in tears were coming up to me and wanted to know more about the play. And the play took off, man. That's when the play took off. I got nominated for an Amnesty International Award. We sold out the last 2 weeks of the play. It was like, I got, great reviews, 4 out of 5 stars. The play did exponentially more than we ever thought that it would ever do. And so when I came back to the States, I was like, man, now what do I do with this little engine that I thought was just a little engine? Now it's, someone stuck a 450 in it now. It's got, dual cams now. It's like, now it's like, it started out like, now it's, now it's like, now it's like got a GTO engine in it, man.
Right.
And a friend of mine said, I had a friend from Houston who was working for a theater, and he said, "Why don't you bring it to Houston, man? I want you to bring the play to Houston. I think it'll do really well here." And that's where the play started touring. And since that day, 2015 in Bowery Poetry Club in New York, for those 8 people, the play since then has performed probably. I've been to 17 cities, 13 states. I've been to the Kennedy Center twice, the Library of Congress, American National Legion headquarters, New York Federal Reserve Bank, theaters and art centers and chocolate factories and West Point communities all over the country. And the play keeps going. This year before COVID, I had 6 performances. I had 6 cities to go to. Obviously, they were all canceled because of COVID. But I'm scheduled to go to New Orleans the end of this month. Next month, or the beginning of next month, for Veterans Day.
Is that still tentative, or is it pretty locked
No,
in?
that's still good.
So this will be the first one since what, about February or March? When was the last time you performed it?
Iowa in February.
Okay. And
right when COVID started, beginning of March, when COVID started, I had just finished, and COVID was my last performance at Iowa. COVID was just like hitting the radar, and when I came back, the world started shutting down.
Yeah. So you said American Legion headquarters. A good friend of mine and Toby's is Mark Seavey, who I think you know. So
yeah, how do you know I know Mark Seavey? Because he's the one who got me there.
Yeah, if anyone does it, he does. Well, Mark and I and Toby and Holmes just go way back, and I texted him and I just said, hey, I got this guy. Doug's on my show right now, and he immediately just shot right back. So yeah, he said he had you at the National Committee. So, yeah, Mark is a good friend of ours. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to text him. I've been trying to email him. He's kind of gone off the radar.
He's got a few youngins there. Them kids keep him hopping, but
he was great. He saw my play at Bedford. I'm going back, but he saw my play in Bedford, New York, and then he was like, he liked it. He did a story on it, and then he wrote me one day, and he said, can you get on a phone call? It was kind of like really serious. I was like, yeah, you know, on a phone call. So I have a project to talk to you about. And he says, and then I went to and then we went to I went to Indiana.
Yeah, he went to the National Convention.
So how do you know Mark? I guess the military or
military? Yeah. I'm Toby and I are both big mill bloggers, right? So it's funny you talk about the therapeutic side of it, and the fact that when I was deployed in Afghanistan in 06-07, I was blogging right before, and so we kind of have this whole military blogging community. Mark was part of that, right? So a whole bunch of us have become very good friends from that aspect, and that's what turned into I started doing this show, or an earlier version of this show, about 11 years ago, and we've been running it ever since across different mediums.
Oh, he's a great guy, man. Yeah. I mean, he's a great guy. Definitely, I'm going to send him another email. Yeah. I've tried to reach out to him a couple of times, but I'll definitely say it's a small world, man.
It is a small world. Yes, it is very much, especially when you run around those circles in the military circles. We have a few questions. I definitely want to get onto landing home, but we have a couple from our chat room, a few folks that have asked. I want to get into one. Is there a favorite letter or one that stands out to you the most of all those letters that you read?
Yeah. Eleanor Wimbish. So Eleanor Wimbish was she lost her son in '68 in the Vietnam War, and she was devastated by the loss of her son. So she would go to the Vietnam Memorial Wall and she would leave letter on every occasion to her son, her dead son, on the wall. Christmas, birthdays, Thanksgiving, everything. And she wrote this letter, and that I came across. And a lot of her stuff, if her name is Eleanor Wimbish, if you people Google William R. Stokes, you'll find her. She became kind of like no one. She became known as the. I think she was known as the bag lady because she would leave bags of stuff at the Vietnam Memorial Wall. That letter is very touching, and it really goes to the heart of of the sacrifice that families make in the military. Um, I won't do all of it, but she says, dear Bill, I've come to this wall again to see and touch your name, and since I see and touch your name, and I wonder if anybody here realizes next to your name on this black wall, if they realize that your mother's heart is next to your name. So it's a very emotional letter, and she just goes on talking about, I found out how you passed away. I talked to your friend, and she just says, I know I found out how hard your jobs were in Vietnam. He was really young. He died in a helicopter crash. Um, Kind of a senseless way to die, which also goes to the travesty of that war. A lot of guys died senselessly. And it just goes to the loss, the loss that many family members go through. But there's a lot of letters in there that are really powerful.
But that one
I do
stands out for sure.
yeah, that one. Oh, that's where I open up really big, and that's when the vets trust me.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
see, they hear that letter, they see the emotions. I've had like I've talked to female, women directors. They say, I think you're getting too emotional in the play. I think you should let them get emotional. And we always gone through this artistic struggle, and I've always said, I believe that the vets won't trust me. I think they won't open their rib cage to me unless I open my rib cage.
Yeah. We're pretty protective, close. Yeah, there's too many people from the outside. It's almost like a brother family, right? It's
Yeah.
there's a lot of fighting, but you come in from the outside, they kind of bond together. Yeah.
So I think once they see me open up the way I open up, they say, okay, if he's going to open up his rib cage, then I can trust him.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Kind of goes in another one. You talked about the relating, getting them to trust you. We had another question. Is curious if you've had trouble tapping into some of the dark humor that veterans have, and if you ever saw it, read in the letters, or heard in your talks with veterans. Have you ever?
Yeah, I've gotten some funny stories. I mean, I
Have
can
you
share
brought
funny
that into
stories.
the? Have you brought that into the show? Has that been kind of doesn't fit?
Yeah, no, I've got some funny in the story. I mean, I do the cliche guy in Vietnam smoking weed. I try to do some funny stuff in there. Let me see. I'm trying to rewind my brain back into the play, but
Like amputees have some of the darkest humor, right? Amputees
yeah,
make fun of
I
themselves
do
all
an
the time.
amputee. I mean, I also do. I do a Chicano guy who loses his arm, and I have humor in the play. It just it sprinkles through. I'm trying to think.
CV's in our chat room now too. He tuned in, so I guess it finally took.
Oh,
You had
tell him I
known.
said really hi, man. Tell him I'm a big fan. Well, if he's watching, it's a pleasure to hear your name again, brother.
Yeah, we've been friends for a long time. It takes me, getting you on for he finally,
Yeah, well,
gets
tell
around
him.
that.
Send me an email. Send an email back,
That's
man.
it. That's it.
Um, I can share a really funny story. I mean, I've done the play for a lot of vets. From I've been blessed to meet some really amazing guys and families. And I was in Austin doing the play, and I was invited to do a portion of the play for a bunch of World War II vets who were in a retirement home. Really cool experience. I'll never forget it. I've got a picture on my blog, and some of these guys fought in Battle of the Bulge. One of the
Wow.
guys was in a Nazi concentration camp. It's like a history book. I was
Yeah.
having lunch, and I sat down with lunch with them, and they were very grateful. And a Korean vet, and they said, so we were talking about stories, and it was really interesting because they all talk about similar stories. One of the common themes, they were sharing their struggles, and a lot of them talk about the financing, how hard it was getting out of the military, not getting, getting used to not having a paycheck every 2 weeks, and that was a very common story I heard from a lot of modern vets. It was really interesting to hear that was the same. The old guys were having the same problems. That's been going on since at least World War II. So I asked one of the old time vets. I said he actually fought on D-Day, but he didn't land on the beach. He was really interesting. He didn't land on the beach. He was held back. He was like on one of the reserve waves, and he said he struggled with PTSD because he never landed.
The guilt, the guilt syndrome.
Oh,
Yeah.
he said it was horrible for him, and he was just such a sweet old man. And so I said, do you have any funny stories? And he said, yeah, I've got some funny stories. And so apparently they had I think it's a captain or a sergeant or a lieutenant, I can't remember, but he was really religious, and he was always reading the Bible, and he made the guys read the Bible. And apparently so if people who know the story of World War One and World War Two, when Allied forces would land on Europe, they would basically sleep in barns of either French or Allied farmhouses they would find, because either the guys were either the POWs were either captured or they were fighting in some kind of resistance force. So basically, all the farms were being held up by women. So a lot of times, these guys would be staying in barns that were only being run by women. So they were marching through Paris and through France, and they knocked on a barn, and this French woman opened up, and she was really pretty, and she had 3 gorgeous girls. And this religious captain said, "Oh, sorry, I was going to ask if we can stay here." And the French always wanted to be very accommodating. They wanted to help, especially during the Second World War. They wanted to contribute. And she said, and he said, we were going to stay here, but I got a full platoon, and I don't think this is the right place for us to stay. And she says, Captain, if you're worried about my girls, don't you worry. They keep everything up here. And he says, I don't care where your girls keep it, ma'am. My boys will find it. And this guy was like 80 something years old telling me this story. And it's one of the most charming stories that I've ever heard, and we were laughing, and he, it was a great experience, because I saw this man, he was 90 something or 88, late 80s. And I saw him as 21 again, telling me the story.
He went right back to it.
Yeah. And we were laughing, and we were all laughing for like it was really weird, because for a couple brief seconds, I felt like I was connected with them, like we were all in a unit, and we were laughing, and I felt like what it must have been like to be in a unit with a bunch of guys,
Right.
And some of them obviously didn't serve together, but their worlds all were similar.
Yeah.
Even the Korean guys and the Vietnam guys, So
the experiences are timeless, right? The things you face and see, it may be a different uniform and maybe this, but it is absolutely, it spans across generations.
Great. Sure. Some great stories. I mean, one guy shared with me, he says about recruiting. He says, when he came to, he says, and I do my opening monologue. I talk about, when you get to recruitment day, you realize you're not in Kansas anymore, because the whole world changes for you. And so this guy told me, when he was on the bus, this guy, I guess who's your company commander, right? Company commander comes on the bus, and he's the one on recruitment day.
You mean like when you go to basic training? When you go to
your first day of basic training.
Yeah, it's drill sergeant. Yeah.
There's a drill sergeant came on, and he had like a Smokey Bear hat.
Yep, that's what they wear.
And he was talking to the bus driver, and he was really nice. Hey, Bill. Hey, how you doing? How you been? And the guy who was telling me the story, I think he was a Vietnam vet. I can't remember, but he said, I was like, wow, this is a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. He said, then he turned his head towards us, and it was like The Exorcist. He says, like, you've got 30 seconds to get off this fucking bus. And, he says, like, if anybody get off the bus, I'm going to kick your ass. And people were like climbing. People, all of a sudden, it was like every man for themselves. Yeah. He said some guy was going through the window of the school bus. He was like, so, I mean, those stories are just great, There's so many stories. I mean, there's so many veteran stories, and
Did you ever video any or record any just to have for nostalgia to look back on?
I have the Q&A. So after every play, what happens is we do a Q&A, and I record those. And those tend to be a little bit more emotional. But I did the performance in Iowa in Cape Cod right before Iowa. And so I was sharing the story that I was blind in my left eye. And so the guy a Marine was sharing a story that apparently he's trying to remember. So apparently he was blind he was blind in his right eye. He was blind in his right eye, but he was able to serve. And he somehow tricked the military to not find out that he was blind. So apparently when they did his eyesight, they said, okay, trying to remember how he did. He says, okay, cover your right eye, and he covered his right eye. He goes, okay, now cover your left eye, and he did this, right? So he switched hands, and he went to the same eye, and so and then and he always just covered his blind eye. So apparently they were doing some kind of firing drills, and they were shooting, and I have that Q&A. I'll share it with you, and he couldn't fire with he couldn't. His aim was shit. And apparently the guy goes, the captain or whatever goes, dude, who the fuck got this guy in here, man? He can't fucking hit a barn, man. He goes like, so they tested his eye. He goes, he's blind in his fucking right eye. He goes, how is he blind in his right eye? I don't know how he's blind in his right eye.
And that's what he's probably shooting with his right eye. He's probably right-handed.
So this guy showed, and it was great. Those are the stories. They're phenomenal, man.
I got one for you. My neighbor 3 doors down was in the Navy in World War II. And obviously, anytime we've had some of those wars, they're desperate. They lower the standards. He was in a couple years in the Navy on ships before they realized he's deaf. That he got busted down in ranks so many times because they thought he just blew off his leaders, and he would get in trouble and get thrown in a brig on a ship all the time. And he was still this day he has 2 hearing aids, and you still have to yell at him. He was pretty much completely deaf in the Navy. They recruited him. The recruiter they knew. He said, "I told him I was deaf. They didn't care. They needed bodies." They threw him in the Navy. He was on a ship. And he was in there for a few years before finally one of his commanders or leaders realized, and they had him checked out. They realized this guy's been deaf the whole time. He's like, yeah, I've been trying to tell everybody.
That was exactly it, man. That was exactly the guy's story. I'm going to share it with you because the way the guy does it is really good. Yeah. So if he's blind as right, he goes, yeah, cover your right eye, now cover your left eye. And he went like this. And he never switched eyes, and he got away with it until he started firing a gun. And he started to realize it.
So Rob, our producer, made contact with me. He said, says in the chat, he was blind in his left eye, but was able to serve. Not 100%, but non-correctable. His enlistment paperwork said must shoot right-handed. So, sometimes you got those waivers, those little caveats you got to put in. I want to spin real quick because we've been on for a while, but I want to get to Landing Home. This is is it correct to call it a spinoff of The American Soldier?
So what's happened over the years that because of The American Soldier, we do this Q&A. As I shared with you in Edinburgh, families would come up to me and they would want to know, how do you know this? Did you serve? And so we started having Q&As, and it became a platform for veterans to share other stories. So I've become connected with a lot of vets, and they would share their stories with me, and I would collect them, and I would, just kind of jot them down in my head, and then I would write them down. And a university saw it, and they said, we would like for you to create a film version of your play. And I said, there's no way for me to do that. I cover all the wars, but let me write a story of a up-to-date soldier coming back, of a current soldier coming back, and let's tell his story and how he's struggling to readjust into civilian life. Because a lot of the conversations I would have in Q&As, besides the Gold Star families, were guys just sharing, it was hard to come back, man. It was really hard. I struggled, I hit the booze, I hit the drugs, I got divorced, I couldn't get a job, and, they would share the stories. So there was a common theme that through the Q&As that I always heard the guys were having a hard time coming back. So that's where Landing Home came from. So I kind of basically decided to write a story of a soldier, I grabbed all these modern soldiers that I would talk to in Q&A and made one guy, and I called him Luke. And I tried to tell his story in a 7-part series of him having a hard time leaving the military and coming back home. And he, like many guys, when he's at war, he wants to be at war, but when he comes home, he wants to go back to war.
Right.
And he's never home. And adjusting is always this, he's got a mistress, and he's trying to he can't figure it out. He loves his family, and the one thing that kind of grounds him is his baby daughter. That's the one thing that kind of centers him. But then when he's alone, his demons come out, right? And then he thinks about feeling guilty
because he's not back over there, and
he's not back over there. And so that's where that's the series, And I knew a lot of vets who were actors, so I casted about 15 actors. And again, like the play, as I wrote the story, and people learned at that time, The American Soldier was pretty well known. So many people in the crew, like my DP, his father struggled with getting a job. His father was a vet. My grip, his uncle took his life from Vietnam. So I had all these stories that people were like, yeah, I want to tell the story, and so everyone jumped on, and before I knew it, we had close to 20 people who were in the military helping me tell the story.
And is it already out? Is it published and out? Is it?
Yeah,
It's
it's on
under.
Amazon right now.
Oh, it's
It's
on
called Landing.
Amazon.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on Amazon. It's called Landing Home. It's on Amazon. It's on Vimeo on demand, and probably in a couple months it'll be on Apple. But you can watch it on Amazon right now. It's
And
called
it's
Landing Home.
7 part series. The season is seven
Yeah, 7
episodes.
series, and kind of a guerrilla project that I shot. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the reviews that it's been getting. It's got 5 stars by Amazon. A lot of vets have been really giving me strong reviews, um, and kind of the American soldier. I do all the wars, right?
Right.
So I try to. One of the messages that I try to share in the American soldier is that the struggles that you see today are not the struggles. They're no different from yesterday.
Yep.
Right. And I tell that same thread in Landing Home. I won't spoil it, but you'll see how I do it. I try to tell in subtle ways that what Luke is going through is the same struggle that the guys have been going through since World War One.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But it's interesting to say that, right? Because we had Dale Dye. He's very famous. He's a big actor in Hollywood, right? Dale Dye's been in everything since Platoon. He's been, Band of Brothers and this and that. And, he's a Marine Corps vet himself. He's also a couple Bronze Stars and a Vietnam vet. And, when we had him on, and kind of like we had you on before the show, we talked for a little bit, and we clicked. And he was, calling me by my rank, and we're calling this, and he was just, we just gelled. And during our interview, it was like almost like we served in the same platoon, even though he's as old as my father and served in the same war as my dad. It's just, you can relate. You don't have to chew the same dirt or see the same uniform. That's not the experience, right? The
yeah,
experience.
you just have to have empathy. I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I try to tell people, and it's like, I get really, this might bleed into some kind of level of of politics, but we love to send young men young men and women between 18 and 26 to war. And we spend a fucking fortune sending you guys over there. I mean, a fortune, getting one soldier ready to go to combat. And politicians love to do that as well. I mean, everyone loves to send people off to war. Like, that's easy. The hard part is paying the bill. It's when guys come back, when families come back, and we've got to help guys adjust, help guys deal with injuries, help guys deal with mental stress, help families readjust, financially, economically, emotionally. And no one wants to pay that bill, right? And my goal has been to remind people that there is a bill to pay. And it's my play or my series. It's not about whether war is good or war is bad. That's never the message that I try to give. I just want people to understand. I want vets to understand that I understand your sacrifice, and I want people who've never have any experience with the military or are not connected to the military to understand what that sacrifice is, and that we as a society, we have an obligation and a responsibility to pay that bill.
Yeah, when the car breaks, you can't just take it to the junkyard. When you've used that car up, you've got to keep maintaining it.
And because it defines us who we are as a nation, as a society. I mean, how we have to be willing to take care of the men and women who are willing to defend us at the highest level. I mean, those that, to me, and I get frustrated, but I want those people. Look, I believe in immigration. I believe immigrants need help. I believe in a lot of social causes, but my belief is that vets should be at the top of the line.
Yep.
That's what I believe. I believe that we can help a lot of people. We can do climate change. There's a lot of things we can, and I believe in all of it, and it's all very valid. I just want our veterans and our veterans' families to be on the top of the line, on the front of the line.
Right.
And that's what I believe in. And I believe the only way we can do that is by sharing your stories, and I think that's where theater is so powerful, because I think it's more powerful than film, because theater, we're all in a room together, we breathe the same air, and we get to experience the same story together, right? There's no, once I have you in the theater, you're mine, right? I get to tell the story, and you're going to listen to me, right? And there's no distractions, there's no TV, there's no, it's just me, you, and I'm gonna embody this character, and I'm gonna take you on a journey, and we're going to try to tell a story together, because storytelling has been going on since the beginning of man.
The bards
And
of war, right? The narrative, the bards that gave
it's
the narrative.
yeah, I mean, it's basically us sitting around a campfire and, telling a story. It's like what you guys do when you're, when you're deployed. You sit around and you tell bullshit stories, and it's the most organic, most connective way that humans can relate to each other, is by telling that story. And that's why I think theater is so powerful. And so that's what I really try to do with both the projects. I just want to make sure people understand that mission, that voice.
Yeah, that's it's interesting you mention that, because that is part of the healing process that this country misses and doesn't get. I've talked about a number of times on here, but we're good now, as you talked about. We get soldiers there fast. We do a lot of stuff. They go through a lot. We come back and we immediately throw them back to society, whether they're staying active duty or they're in a reserve component. What they don't get is what they got in War One and Two. Really was a month or two boat ride back to the States where they talk through all that stuff. Right, the peer-to-peer talking is what is key to helping a lot of these veterans. It's not the in front of a social worker at the VA or anything else, or sending them a monthly check. It's the sit down and talk it out. And I think we've talked about a number of times, and I'm a strong believer in this. That 2 or 3 month boat ride, the coming back from Europe or coming back from the Pacific, they talked around the good, bad, and ugly that they all experienced together. The funny moments, the sad moments when they lost somebody. When they landed back on our shores, they got a lot of that out of their system, right?
Yeah.
And they went on to become the leaders of this country in both business and government and
You
everything.
know, you know what people don't know, and during the Second World War, they actually had a decompression program after the Second World War. It was it's talked about in the documentary done by HBO with James Gandolfini. It's called
Mm-hmm.
War Torn. It
Mm-hmm.
was done about 10 years ago. It's called War Torn, and they talk about it. They actually had a decompression program for vets coming out of the Second World War, and it was really successful. It was so successful they thought, we don't need it. It's a waste of money, and we've never brought it back. The government has never brought it back, and it goes back to what you're saying. It was really that. It was brothers talking to each other and helping each other and relating with each other, and then helping each other come back and land home and heal.
Yeah, I mean, the military is great. They're efficient at training men and women to desensitize against the one thing that goes against our DNA, which is taking another human life, right? They're good at training us to be able to look at something as a target and not a father, son, mother, whatever. And we
Yeah.
do that. We turn that adrenaline kicks in. We do that while we're in combat, or for the years that we're back and forth to combat, or whatever it is. At some point, they come back, and that adrenaline stops, which is the most powerful drug there is, and we produce it, and everything slows down, and then they start reflecting. That person they saw that was standing next to their kid that they smoked, right? That face is in it. They have a smell, they see a sight, they see a person that brings that memory back. It's because they no longer have the shield on. The shield's off. They're back in their comfortable home. Maybe months, maybe years later, and it comes back, and people, oh, you're battle scars, you got PTSD, whatever. It's I'm a human being still. I can look at that, and it's like it brings me back to that moment, or something brings me back, and
Yeah.
it's like you still have to deal with a human emotion. Not too many people can keep that sheltered forever. It's going to pop back up, and you probably saw it a lot when the older vets that you talked to. You probably saw a lot
Oh,
of
I've
people.
seen it. I've seen it with a lot of generations. I mean, I can tell you some crazy stories. In Austin, I performed a play, and there was a guy who served in Vietnam. What's really interesting is I've been connecting with a lot of the Vietnam vets are reliving a lot of their traumas. I don't know if it's because we're at the age they're living at, or they're getting at an age where their family structure is really falling apart. They're losing wives, losing children are so far away that they're not connected anymore. But I've been some really powerful Vietnam vet stories and in my Q&A. And one guy, I remember finishing the play, and the guy came up and man, he was using the word gook, and it's like, these fucking gooks, what you don't understand about the fucking gooks, it's like, they were trained soldiers, they were professional soldiers, they've been fighting the French already, and the gooks. And man, I could see in his eyes, he was back there. Like he had left Austin, Texas, and he was back in Vietnam. And I remember watching his wife grab his arm, squeeze it, she was looking at me like trying to apologize, and I just had to like I had to detach from the guy because I could just see that he was just
He was
his
working
wheels.
himself up. He was,
Yeah, he was revving back up again, and
yeah.
I was just like, yeah, that he was gone. I gave him a hug and I said, thank you for coming, and thank you for your service. And I always tell Vietnam vet guys to say, and a Vietnam vet guy taught me that. I say, welcome home.
Yeah.
Because none of them got welcome home.
No, that's
So
right.
every time I see a Vietnam vet guy, I say, welcome home, sir.
Yeah. So what's is there going to be another season? Is there going to be what's next?
I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping it's going to be another season. And I've got some really good actors. I got J.W. Cortez in it. I've got a girl named Ilfa Idleston, who's great. She plays my wife. I got the guy who plays my dad was an Irishman. I got some great actors in the series, and they do amazing work in there. And J.W. Cortez, he's a well-known actor. He was in Gotham. He saw combat. I've got in episode 6, there's like 3 guys in there who saw combat. They were Marines. That scene in that episode has 4 or 5 vets in it.
Do you let them ad lib? Do you write a script it all out, or do you let them kind of go with what they know and feel?
No, I script it all out.
Do you?
Because I wanted to be true to what the veterans were saying. You never want. You got to be very careful when you tell actors to ad lib. Right. You don't know where they're going to go.
But I mean, if there were actors that were vets that know that feeling, that know the term, the vernacular, and all that stuff, if you let them kind of just go with what?
Yeah, I would. But when everybody who read the script said, "Man, it's pretty accurate, man." I mean, you're good. Like you're right on. And I think the experience that I took from creating the play, The American Soldier, I took right into The Landing Home, and I was reinforced that the more accurate I was, the more success I would have with vets. So I really made a concerted effort to be as accurate as possible as I could with the language, like little things. There's a couple of things I needed to cut out, but I'll share something. Like I have a line in there where I talk about acronyms. And my wife says, "Stop talking about acronyms. I'm tired of hearing these fucking acronyms." Because when I would interview wives, they would always, that was always one common thing. Yeah, fucking the acronyms in the military.
There's no shortage of them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a no shortage of them. Stop with the fucking acronyms already. So, those are the little things that vets get, right? They, that's true to your world.
Right. Awesome. And the American Soldier's starting back up in November.
November, yeah.
Veterans Day. Are there any performances planned for after that right now? Or
so I'm scheduled to go to November. New Orleans in November, and then after that, I'm scheduled to go to where am I going? I feel like I'm a rock band. I'm going to Chicago in April, and I'm going to Tracy, California in May. But where am I going? Eastern Illinois in October. That's what I was thinking. Okay. I wanted to say Louisiana, but it's right.
So with all this going on, the COVID stuff, all that looks like it's going to happen. You're able to travel and
this is 2021. So it's we're all hamstrung to what the government says.
Right.
Right. I mean, we're good to go. Everyone is trying to reschedule things. I'm supposed to go to San Antonio, perform.
San Antonio will be a big one, right? Toby was down there for a long time.
Yeah, a lot of vets down there, and there's a guy down there. His name is John Luis, Jose Luis. He lost his leg in Afghanistan, so he was trying to get me to do. He's amazing, man. He's on Instagram, Jose Luis, JL Luis. He's got one leg, and fucking, you got to see the shit he does, man. He's got an all into late weightlifting, man. It's pretty amazing what he does. So those are the shows, and I had, and then I'm gonna in the summer I'm going to Texas. I'm going to Granbury, Texas. So the shows are starting to come back up, so I think in 2021 will be really busy because I think I have the 2021 shows that are already planned, and then all the 2020 shows that have been canceled, they're going to try to probably slide into 2021.
Are you, and where can people follow the schedule, find out where it's at, working on both projects?
Yeah, if you go to, you can find Landing Home on Amazon, and if you watch it and if you like it, leave a review. I'm on social media as @Douglas Taurel. I'm on Facebook @Douglas Taurel.
You're on IG. You're on Twitter. Yeah, we got.
I'm on IG. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, and I've got my website. You can connect with me through my website, theamericansoldiersoloshow.com.
Yep.
And the landinghomewebseries.com. And you can send me an email. You can connect and get on my newsletter. And but if you can share the play, share the story, because I'm having a hard time getting press. The press is right now mainly focused only on politics,
Right.
and our vets are falling through the crack. I mean, we've got like 37,000 guys who are living on the streets right now, and it's only going to get worse, I think, in the future. I mean, I was even able to. I raised $3,000. I donated every single penny during COVID for guys who are E5 and below. A couple of vets reached out to me and they said, a lot of E5, E7 and E5 guys below, they don't make much money and they're on dual income and their wives they lose their jobs. So I started a fundraiser campaign and I raised 3,000. I donated every penny to the food and pantry, the YMCA food and pantry at Fort Bragg's.
Wow.
So
Dude,
anything you
that's
can do
awesome.
to share the play to keep the message going, because really the play, like Mark knows really clearly, the play gets out there because vets share it.
Right.
And the more vets share it, the more I can talk about the issues that are important and keeping our vets top of mind, not letting them fall through the cracks.
Yeah, yeah, and the people, especially the American people that don't have that connection to the 1% that have served and are serving in combat in the last 19 years, especially, but beyond that, all the way back to the other generations, they need to see something besides just what's in a cool 2-hour action movie, right? There's
Yeah,
that whole backstory. So, yeah, we got the websites. We've been putting them up. Rob's been putting them up in the chat room. And we'll definitely do that. I'm definitely going to add that to my watch list on Amazon, and check that out. And I would
appreciate it.
keep an eye on when you tour. I mean, I'm here on the other side of the state. Hopefully, maybe have you ever performed in New York?
I have. I performed in Red Hook, New York, in a chocolate factory. I performed in Bannerman Island. You know Bannerman Island?
Where's that? Is that in Thousand
It's
Islands?
a little island on Hudson River, right
Oh,
across West Point.
okay.
That's it for New York State. Besides, I did Off-Broadway twice.
Right.
But I like to go to Buffalo. I like to perform in Buffalo. I'm sure I can reach out. You can't really reach out to anybody right now because
Right.
everyone doesn't know what's going on with. I mean, no one knows what's going on with their
Right.
lives.
Right. Right.
Everyone
Absolutely.
is just waiting for the world to open up again.
What about any other projects you got going on? You have a long IMDb history, or do you have any other side
Yeah, so
projects?
I'm working right now. Besides, I'm getting my head spin on season 2, but I'm also during the Q&A of the American Soldier, a lot of female vets have stood up, and they've asked me, how come you don't tell female combat vet stories? And so I've said, and I give a bullshit answer, and so I am now on a mission to tell their story. So I've interviewed 5 female vets, a colonel, a blue star, a girl who lost her eye, some really amazing women who, badass chicks, um, some really amazing, just heroes, just great girls. And so my goal is hopefully by next year to tell their story in the American Soldier, to put a character in there, because really the American Soldier, because I play guy from I played many different dialects. I play an African American character. I play a Hispanic character. The American Soldier is a mosaic of what America is,
Right.
and I think what people forget is that whether you're born in this country or you come to this country like my parents did and I was born, we all love this country so much that we're willing to put on the uniform and go defend it. And there's never, one of the beautiful things about this country, there's never, in the history of American conflicts, there's never been a shortage of young men and now women and women really, because women fought during the revolution, just people
Right.
don't know about it. But there's never been a shortage of young men and women who've been willing to defend this experiment that we call the United States of America. And it really is something that we fall in love with. And I think it's an important story in the American Soldiers to remind everybody that we love this country, and it doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, Black, or from Boston, or from Ireland, or from the South. What matters is the experiment, what this land stands for. and
Yeah.
and I know young people who have seen the play. Have I like to do it for more young people, because when they see the play, they think it's sad in one way. It's like, wow, I didn't know we fought in so many wars. You're like, Jesus Christ, what are they teaching you in school today, man? But they're like, man, it's really interesting. It makes me really proud to be an American, to hear those stories. I go, yeah, you should be proud. And I've always said that I've always felt that that Memorial Day and Veterans Day is really, though it's a somber day, it's a very prideful day for me, because for me as an American, and my father was very proudful that day, because it reminds us that we live in a nation that we celebrate the sacrifice given by so many. And they've that's a beautiful thing, to live in a country that people are willing to die for, to give the ultimate sacrifice.
Right.
That they're willing to give the ultimate sacrifice to defend this experiment that we call the United States of America. And on Memorial Day, not many nations have that. Not many nations are
No.
throwing themselves on the bayonet to defend their nation. And as Americans, we should be very proud that we have that in our blood.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for complete strangers, for people that don't think like you, look like you, act like you, that you probably would fight with any other time, you're willing to go and die for them for that. And it is a beautiful thing. But hey, Doug, had you on for a long time tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm going to ask you to stay on just for a couple minutes so we can catch up on a couple things after the show. But I'm going to wrap up, and I want to again thank you. I want to thank our listeners and viewers. That was an hour and a half that flew by. I didn't mean for it to go that long, but man, there's more I would love to talk with you about. So I want to have you back on again, and I want to help get this out there. This is a great cause. I was checking out the trailers today. I wrote a blog post and put it up. So if people haven't seen it, go check out the trailers. Again, it's American Soldier is the play, and Landing Home is the web series you can find on Amazon. And Doug Taurel, I want to, again, awesome guest and great insight and perspective from someone that's never served, but you've been exposed and given this opportunity to get this inside view to many that have, and using your talents and gifts to tell it, I think are pretty awesome.
Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your listeners, and to every veteran out there, thank you for your service. And thank you for putting your life on hold for us.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, everyone, you guys have a good night. We'll see you next Thursday here on Stew and The Nunn, 8 o'clock Eastern. Toby should be back. And with all that, I mean, hopefully we gave you better entertainment than you would probably find anywhere else tonight. Like I say, there's probably nothing going on. So with that said, we will talk to you all next week here at 8 o'clock Eastern on Stew and The Nunn. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stew and The Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlist 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.